Tutorial hell. We've all been there at some point, and it sucks. You go through tutorial after tutorial only to get to the end and realize that you didn't actually learn or retain anything. Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you how you can get out of tutorial hell and how to actually just prevent getting into it in the first place. Tip number one is to actually pick a good course. Now, there's tons of bad courses out there, and I'm sure you know what that's like. The instructors are boring, they don't know how to teach, the courses are outdated, and you don't even want to finish it. The instruction leaves a lot to be desired, and you go through the course thinking, well, I have to Google everything anyway. It's kind of like in college when your professor would just read from the textbook, and they're the ones that actually wrote the textbook, and in order to pass the course, you have to buy their textbook, so it's kind of like a conflict of interest. But anyway, they just read from the textbook the entire time, and then you don't actually learn anything because they're not really teaching, and then you have to go home and teach yourself everything anyway, therefore wasting all of your time in class. These are some of the awful things that I've had to put up with really bad courses. And to find yourself a good course, there are a few things that you can do. The first thing that you can do is actually read the negative reviews associated with that course. If multiple people are saying the same thing about the course, it's probably true, despite how many positive reviews that they actually have on their course. You should read through them and see if the negatives are things that would really bother you about that course. Some of the negative reviews are pretty minuscule, and sometimes people make a huge deal out of really nothing, but sometimes they may be more significant and may hurt your chances of actually completing the course. Next is to look up the course overview. On sites like Udemy, the courses themselves usually have some kind of overview where the instructor is describing their course. Pay attention to the tone that they're describing their course with and the way that they're talking. That's most likely how they're going to be teaching you throughout their course. If you find that to be really boring and difficult to learn from, that might give you an indication that their course is going to suck. Also, some instructors might have a YouTube channel or might be involved in some other form of media. Actually go and listen to some of their videos or read some of their other media and see the type of things that they're talking about. They might do video tutorials. You could watch those tutorials and see how they teach and see the type of things that they discuss and how well they know the subject that they're trying to teach you. Finally, you should actually read the course description and see if the course includes a lot of things that aren't relevant to you or just aren't relevant anymore. Something that I find to be really annoying, specifically with sites like Udemy, is that a lot of the courses are outdated, which kind of is understandable because especially if they're producing a huge course, it might take a lot of work to update it, but you're paying for that course. You should get the updated information. So it's your job to see if that information is actually up to date. Tip number two is not to rush through your course or learning material. I've gone through this before, and the sort of thinking is, I want to get through this course as quickly as possible so I could learn everything and then I could just know everything. But that is not how it works. Typically what happens is you get excited, you rush through the course because you want to finish it, and once you reach the end, you realize that you haven't actually retained any of the information. So what can you do now? You could pay for another course, or you could retake the course that you already took and try to sift through all of the important topics. Now you're spending more time than you originally intended because you rushed through the course. And imagine if you would have just taken your time and gone through the course and actually learned everything. Would your results be different? The goal of the course or learning material is to actually learn the concepts that are being taught. Now, if you can rush through a course and still learn everything, then by all means go ahead. But you should never sacrifice understanding the concepts for finishing the course quicker. No one actually cares that you finished a Udemy course. In fact, you could probably just go through the course and check off each section and then just print out your certificate of completion. No one cares. What matters is that you understood the concepts that are being taught. Tip number three is to code on your own. When the instructor tells you to pause the tutorial and figure something out on your own, you should actually do it. I know for a fact that I didn't do this, and most of the time when my courses would tell me to try and figure out something on my own, I would either just not do it and just continue to follow the tutorial, or I would give up after a few minutes and then just continue anyway. The reason why you should actually try these things on your own is because you'll learn more when you're struggling. Think about it. You start working on a problem and you can't figure it out. So what do? Well, you probably do a Google search to how to find the answer, and you might wind up on MDN or W3 schools, and you will read over the documentation. So now you go back to your problem and try to apply what you read through the documentation to solving your problem. But maybe you still can't figure it out. So you'll watch a YouTube video, or maybe you'll ask for help in a forum or Stack Overflow. Now you apply that solution to your problem, and great, you figured it out, it works. Now that's not the exact process of every time you have a coding related issue, but don't you think the next time you come across that exact type of coding problem, you'll remember the process that you went through to get that answer? Now you'll have a reference point of how you figured out that answer, and you'll remember, and it'll make it a little bit easier to figure out the solution. If you don't go through the struggle and have that answer fed to you, the next time you won't be able to figure out how to answer that type of problem. And who knows, you might have a job then and you won't have a tutorial to reference to try and figure it out. I'm not saying you should go crazy trying to figure something out, but you should at least struggle a little bit and give yourself an opportunity to come up with the answer on your own. Tip number 4 is to add additional features to your tutorial projects. If you've taken a good course, or at least a halfway decent course, chances are that your course gave you some kind of project to work on. And if you're like me, you did exactly what they told you to do. You completed the project and you implemented every feature that they told you to implement. Great, right? Now, if you understood the concepts of that project, well then great, but you followed a roadmap. You didn't actually make any of the decisions that went into that project. And now you have a project that looks and functions exactly the same as everyone else who took that course. Do you really want that? Maybe a better thing to do is to follow the instructions to complete that project. Then once you're done, go back and add some new features or something different that makes that project a little more unique. Here's an example of this. So in order to make my project a little bit different, instead of making a regular to-do app, I made the world's most annoying to-do app. And beware, it is very annoying. You'll see as soon as the app loads, it starts playing this voice.
Why do scuba divers always fall backwards out of the boat? If they fell forward, they'd still be on the boat. Why don't they play poker in the savannah? Too many cheetahs.
And then, if you try to add a to-do with the add me bro obnoxious button, it makes that sound. And in order to actually add a to-do item, you got to click up here. Now, I chose to be a little bit silly with my project, but you don't have to do that. You could be more serious and add some good features to your projects. Not only will this solidify the concepts that you've learned through building the projects, but you have something that you could actually be proud of and didn't just complete from following a tutorial. Tip number 5 is to actually figure out why things work. Don't just be happy with your code working. You should actually know why it's working. We've all seen this meme. You don't want to be that person. Just because your code works doesn't mean you actually know what's going on. Look, I've been there. I've scoured the internet, eventually landing on Stack Overflow, where I find that question that I'm asking that someone has asked before me, and they've actually received a good answer. Then I copied that answer, plugged it into my code, and it worked. Do I know exactly what it's doing? Nah, but who cares, right? Wrong. That may have solved your problem in that specific scenario, but what if you come across that sort of problem later on down the road and you have to debug it? Will you know what's going on and how to fix that sort of problem? Probably not, because you copied it and don't actually understand what's going on and how it works. Look, I'm not saying you need to be an expert, but you should at least have a pretty good understanding of what your code is doing. These are the things that I've done to stay out of tutorial hell. If you liked any of these, give it a like. And if you're interested in more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe.